guys and gals, and everybody here for Trick Gaming and something on Twitter, the Gaming Drag. Today I'm coming back at you on a Let's Play episode of A Fall from Grace. So y'all, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? Alarm January up, and let's go. 7th January, I think it should be this one. Okay. He undid his ponytail and slowly ran his left hand, which he hadn't dipped in the water yet, through his hair. To his relief, it didn't feel greasy, but he knew that if he didn't wash it before going to bed, he would strongly regret it the following morning. Part of him wished he could take his boots, just pantaloons and the rest of his clothes off and dive into the running water. But the summer days were over. Bathing the stream was no longer an option during the colder months of the year. Yet the Coyote still felt drawn to this or any watercourse, whenever he needed to clear his mind or just relax after a long day. It was an aspect of who he was that had remained unvaried since he was a child. At his parents' estate, he'd spend entire afternoons sitting next to the lake and listening to the water, or bathing and playing games with Victor whenever the fox wasn't busy. During his days as a guest at Lysander's aunt's house, he'd missed that garden, that lake in particular. He would sometimes take walks around his hometown, always making sure to stroll along the riverbank just outside the walls to make up for it. He had always loved the feeling of being immersed in nature, and there had certainly been no lack of that feeling ever since he'd started living with Victor and the bandits. Getting lost in his own thoughts felt easier than usual on a morning like this, with the much-anticipated masked ball looming just over a day away. He recalled just how different his life had been on the same day the previous year. The same Victor who was now a part of his life every day was then just a warm, hazy childhood memory, part of a world he'd wished he could return to, especially during the rainy days he'd spent alone in his room, whilst Lysander was out visiting his many family members. Morning! Victor had appeared seemingly out of nowhere and was standing just a few inches to Cedric's right. Oh, hello, V. Where'd you come from? Just further down that way. I was taking a short walk and spotted you sitting here. Is everything all right? I know that look on your face. What that look on your face usually means. I'm fine, thanks. Cedric smiled. The fact he could tell the fox cared so much about him filled him with gratitude. Thank goodness they never got tired of spending time with each other. Thank goodness he'd made the right choice. That worrying thought was still lodged in the depths of his mind since the start of their relationship. The fear that perhaps, once time had passed and they both got to know each other again, there just wouldn't be much left to talk about and things would quietly die down between them. Luckily, their bond was as strong as ever, despite their different backgrounds and despite the years spent apart, and at this point it seemed the topics of conversation were destined to never run out. I've been thinking, what if things don't go as planned? Tomorrow? No, not necessarily. I mean, our plan, moving to the larger towns and starting things over. What if... And what if that doesn't come to pass? Cedric looked the other way, aware he was letting his intrusive thoughts take over at the wrong time. The fox smiled and sat down next to him. It's hard not to run the risk of overthinking on days like these, isn't it? Yeah, I've always been the boy who'd get lost in his thoughts, ever since I can remember. You know, tea time? That's some damn good tea. Spice to it. The answer is we'd have to remain bandits for another year or so. I know it's not what either of us would want in the long run, but you don't seem to mind this life too much, do you? Cedric shook his head, a smile tugging at his lips as he was reminded of the surprising joy he'd gotten out of this lifestyle change. Though listen to me, love. I'll do everything I can to make sure our plan works out, I promise. When I say I'd like to start things over with you, I mean it. I never wanted you to be locked into banditry for life. It's true, this country doesn't like it when folks manage to crawl out of the place they've been assigned in society. It's almost unthinkable for such a thing to happen. But fuck it, we'll do it, at the expense of those who put us down in the first place. It was nigh impossible for Cedric not to smile at the fox's optimism. He admired his choice to stand up and change things for the better, in a world marred by hatred and injustice. A rogue, a tail raiser, and a revolutionary. You're everything my parents taught me to be afraid of. Ha! And they were right to be afraid. Look at us now, confirmed sodomites living a life of crime. These words were accompanied by the fox leaning forward and running a hand down Cedric's chest, aiming for his crotch. The Coyote shook his head. What a pathetic attempt at getting him hard. A pathetic attempt which worked instantly. Now, darling, don't get too excited. I can't possibly delay you so when Hollis is expecting you back at the camp. Oh, does he need help with something? The fox let out an amused snort. You literally agreed to help him prepare lunch for all of us earlier. Oh, yes I did. You really are the boy who still gets lost in his thoughts. Victor shook his head playfully and rose to his feet, as Cedric got ready to follow him, picking his gloves and hat up. Luckily, I had some fox bandit to keep me on track. You're just saying that. Just a few minutes later, Cedric was busy helping Hollis carry all the pots, pans, and food they needed out from the tiger's carriage so that the two could begin their work. The Coyote took care of chopping up some onions, carrots, and turnips on the biggest chopping board he could find, whilst Hollis prepared part of the salted meat from the group's supplies. What voice was I doing for Hollis, y'all? We make a good team, Cedric. Have I told you that? I think that's... No, that's not the voice. We make a good team, Cedric. Have I told you that? Only every single time I help with the cooking. Well, it's true. Why do we open a tavern at some point? I'd be honored to save you as an assistant in the kitchen. Have you an assistant as the kitchen? Cedric smiled, not quite sure how to respond to the offer. I found I enjoy cooking, but I don't know if I enjoy it that much. I fucking hate chopping up onions, for instance. He grumbled and wiped his right eye with his sleeve. You have no idea what I've had to put up with back in the day. People who just wouldn't listen to what I tell them to do. Or the few that would listen, but far too incompetently. I told one fellow to season a meal with paprika, and he put it on everything. From the roast chicken to the side salad, even the bread roll, for fuck's sake. Thinking, water time. Alright, y'all, we are back. Alright. Voice, okay. Alright. Simply cannot deal with uncooperative behavior. Preparing food for others is a team effort, and good communication is essential, on both sides. Oh, so you had assistants with you in the kitchen. How silly of me. I always just assumed you did everything yourself. You flatter me, Sad, but I've only got 2 hands. Which you put to great use, that's for sure. Hollis picked up a knife, playfully pointing it in the coyote's direction. You're lucky you're attractive. I'm done with the vegetables, by the way. Brilliant. Next thing you can do is pick up that pot over there, the one I filled with water. Let it heat up over the fire and then chuck the carrots and turnips in once it starts boiling. Cedric did as he was told, then inched closer to Hollis to check if he needed any further assistance. I've never asked, but how come you left the inn you used to work at? You've always struck me as someone who's incredibly passionate about what they do. You're in the mood for a story, I see, the Coyote answered with a sly grin. I have an hour or 2 to spare is all. And you're a great narrator. You could describe paint drying and I'd still listen. The tiger waved his right hand dismissively, indicating the subject was no big deal. The Black Horse, that was its name. It was a family business, as you know, but that all changed after my parents died. My brother and I grew distant, until one night he moved out, leaving a note behind and nothing else. That's when I knew I had no choice but to fend for myself. At first, it felt liberating in a way. I could hire who I wanted, manage my time off, give myself a larger share of our earnings. And I didn't have to spend most of my time hiding my sexuality. In just over a year, I managed to turn the Black Horse into a meeting point for the local queer folk, and I couldn't have been happier. Though in hindsight, I might have been a tad too reckless back then. Oh, really? When I say I've seen and done it all, I'm not joking. It felt good compensating for the years I'd spent hiding who I was. But fate had other plans for me. Most of the people I hired turned out to be a big disappointment. You've got to know me well enough, Ced. I don't think I'm someone who's hard to work with, and I always treat everyone with respect no matter who they are. Would you agree? Cedric nodded. Of course he agreed. Felt like he'd never met anyone as accepting as Hollis and the other bandits in his life. I lost my temper a lot more than I should have back then, until one day they all walked out on me, save one. Wonder how Oliver's doing these days. He was a good lad and stuck with me till the very end. I don't know who was responsible for it, my ex-staff, a disgruntled client, or someone maliciously hiding their sexuality by pointing the finger at others. But rumors began to circulate about the Black Horse, rumors that reached the local authorities. The guards never attempted a full raid on the place, but folk gradually felt less safe. And as soon as I didn't have enough money coming in to keep the business open, I had tears in my eyes the day I shut that creaky old door for the last time and said my goodbyes to Ollie. I had nowhere to go. My reputation in town had plummeted, and people I'd once worked with wanted nothing to do with me. My brother wouldn't take me in again if Satan himself forced him to. And this is where Dion comes into the story. He'd long been a patron at the Black Horse, actually. Despite not being close with him, I was well aware of what a larger-than-life character he was, and the long list of boys that would always be running after him. A long list, is it? Soon I turned to banditry, and after a couple unsuccessful muggins, I was desperate. One evening I happened to cross Dion and attempted to pickpocket him. Fucking hell, I wish I could have been around to witness that. Hollis let out a hearty laugh. He would have witnessed me being shoved against the wall and almost choked at first, though it didn't take him more than a few seconds to recognize me. We made peace, had a long, earnest chat about everything, and as a result, he offered me a place at his side in exchange for some good food. It almost felt like the planets had aligned, that I was destined to meet him. I'm so glad you did. Despite running the risk of coming off as a little condescending, Cedric placed a hand on Hollis's shoulder. He wanted him to know how much he'd appreciate learning about the events that had led him to his current life. I didn't wish for you to relive any memories you've tried leaving behind. Deep down, he almost felt a little jealous at how the tiger had discovered and accepted his sexuality so easily compared to him. He shook his head. That fear of missing out was particularly stupid in this case, considering everything Hollis had gone through. It doesn't hurt as much as when I tell you the story nowadays. It feels a lot more distant away. It's had its ups and downs, but I've led a good life so far. The tiger smiled, tilting his head to look at the pot Cedric had left on the fire earlier. Water's boiling. The boiling, I tell you. After having enjoyed a hearty meal and sending praise to Hollis and Cedric's cooking, the bandits had all regrouped in front of the old carriage. It was time for Cedric to stay true to the promise he'd made and instruct everyone on how to be on their best behavior the following evening. The sun was just beginning to set. The sound of Hillsford's bells could be heard out in the distance, carried by the whistling wind. The sound reminded him of the bells of the old schoolhouse near his home. He'd always wanted to try going to school there, rather than being isolated from other kids his age, Victor being the exception. Hollis handed him a mug of cider, which he knew the coyote never refused. Have this as encouragement, Ced. You don't want a dry mouth while giving a talk. With a look of deep gratitude, Cedric humbly accepted the drink. Gentlemen, your attention, please. The sudden clang of a ladle hit one of the bartender's pots brought any ongoing conversation to a halt. Cedric cleared his throat. Victor, who was seated to his right, gave him a light nudge with his left elbow as a form of playful encouragement. Where was he even supposed to begin? If he'd been put in this situation a year before, panic would have taken over, but he wasn't going to let that happen now. He recalled how old Farley would start his lessons, trying to encourage some form of interaction from his young pupil. All right, boys. By show of hands, which of you have been to a masquerade ball before? This method seemed to work. Dion, Ridley, and Selwyn lifted up their hands. Great! My guess is that it was a public event as opposed to a private one. The three bandits nodded. I don't know why you'd expect past me to have enough money for that, though Sel here might have been able to. You overestimate the amount of people I used to know. I never got invited to anything. Alright, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and pause it right there. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and check out our Patreon or YouTube memberships if you can. It always helps. Anyway, I love you all, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye!